Good morning, scholars. I hope you had a good weekend and a nice Mother's Day with your mom. I hope she enjoyed the card that you made her. I bet it was so special for her. Okay, so our first lesson that we're going to do is a reading lesson, and we are going to be reading a new story. And just to remind you, we're learning all about forces and motion. So we're going to take a look at a video just to remind ourselves what forces and motion are.
Forces and motion. Things are constantly in motion. An avalanche rushes down a hill. An airplane rises up into the air. A baseball player hits a ball. You can pump your legs to swing higher. You can push a toy. You can pull a wagon. What makes things move?
And that is our big idea. So, this is what we've been looking at last week, and we'll be looking at it again this week too. Forces in motion. We know forces are things that can push and pull. Forces can push, forces can pull, forces can push, forces can pull. Let me hear you say. Forces can push, forces can pull. Ooh, very good. And motion. Motion sounds like move, right? Both starts with M, motion and move. So this is in motion. This roller coaster is moving, right? This bike rider and his bicycle are moving. They're in motion. This boy on the swing is moving. He is in motion. And a rocket ship that's blasting off is also in motion. So our big idea, ding, is what makes things move. And we know that that is forces, things that push and pull. Okay, forces, just a reminder, occur when an object acts upon another, like pushing or pulling. So this is a force here, this picture. The boy is pushing the car. He is forcing motion, right? He is pushing. He is making the car move. In this picture, this is also a force. The girl is pulling. She is pulling on the wagon to make it move. Motion. Motion is when something moves, like you're moving, you're in motion, or you can make something move, like this toy here on the playground, or I can move my phone from here to here by pushing it. Okay, so for today's lesson, we're going to be using a circle map. You can get it on Google Drive if you go to the Thinking Maps with the light bulb, find a circle map, or you can draw your own circle map. So go ahead and get a blank piece of paper and a pencil. You can pause the video. When you're ready, go ahead and click play. Okay, if you're still watching, that means you're ready. Our story today is going to be called Forces. And I'm looking at these pictures. I see a skier and snow. So I guess we'll check it out and see what it's about. Okay, so the title of this story is Forces. And on top it says Forces in Motion by Joy Brewster. That's the author. I want you to take a minute to look at the front cover and tell me what you predict the story is going to be about. Remember, the title is Forces. So what do you think it's about? I think the story is about forces, things that push and pull. I see a skier and I see him holding something. I wonder if he pushes with that. Let's take a look inside. Pictures to think about. So we see these pictures here. Let's check them out. I see a boy and he is pulling on a string. It looks like a tire or not a tire, a tube, a blow-up tube that you could actually slide down a hill, like a sled almost, in the snow. On this one, I see a guy who is scraping snow off his car so he can see. That's pushing. This is pulling, pushing. And then I see this kid here who's making a snow angel by moving his arms up and down, up and down. He's pushing the snow down and pulling the snow up and pushing the snow down and pulling the snow up. And then when he stands up, it's gonna look like there's an angel in the snow. It's called a snow angel. This page here tells the title again, Forces by Joy Brewster. That's the author. It has all these images. You can go ahead and take a minute to look at those pictures and guess what the story is about. You see sledding, skiing, somebody on this lift that you sit on and it takes you to the top of a mountain. I see the kids sledding. I see a game of hockey. And then underneath it says table of contents, and it tells you the titles of each page and where to find them, or each chapter. Okay, here are our vocabulary words, or our new words to think about. The first word is
force.
Force, and we know force, right?
Think of
Force is a push or a pull.
And we know that forces can push.
Gravity.
Oh, forces can push and forces can pull. So we see the kids pushing the sled here and the girl pulling the sled on a rope. The next word is gravity. And Miss Paulino mentioned that a little bit last week, but I said gravity is actually what keeps you on the ground. So right now, you might be standing or you might be sitting. I'm sitting in a chair, but I'm not floating in the sky, am I? Are you floating in the sky? No, and that's because of gravity. Gravity pulls you down to the earth. It keeps your feet on the floor. Also, I noticed that my table is on the floor. The other chairs are on the floor. My refrigerator is on the floor. Nothing is floating in the sky. I see a lamp that's in the sky, but it's actually stuck to the ceiling. It's not just floating in the air. So that's because of gravity. Gravity pulls you down. Gravity helps the skier move down the hill. So because of gravity, it pulls him down. Just like if I stand up, my feet are still on the ground because gravity is pulling my feet down to the ground. So gravity, let me give you another example. I'm going to get something. Okay, here's a lime. What do you think would happen if I dropped the lime? I'm going to drop it right now. What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to let it go. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to float or do you think it's going to fall on the table? Let's see. I'm going to let it go. What happened? It fell. Let me try again. I'm just going to let it go. We're going to see if it floats or if it stays. If it floats or if it falls. Ready? What happened? It fell, and that's because gravity is pulling it down. When you let something go, it drops to the ground because of gravity. So when the boy or the skier is on, it could be a girl, is on the hill, and the hill goes down, right? If you're on a hill, it goes down. So if she just lifts up her hands, which has the sticks in the ground, her skis are going to go down, right? Because gravity, it's pulling you to the ground. That's kind of hard to understand, but just know gravity pulls you down. If I let go of the line, it falls because of gravity. Okay, the next word we're going to learn is machine, and I'm sure you've heard of this. This is a machine here. This machine smooths the surface of the ice. So this is actually an ice rink. You can go ice skating. Maybe you've ever done that. It's kind of hard. Or if you've ever seen a hockey game, people play hockey on the ice. And you need the ice to be very smooth for your skates. So this machine smooths the surface, the ice rink. The next word is motion. And we've heard motion, right? Like move. These skaters are in motion, which means they're moving, as they glide across the ice. So they're actually ice skating. And this is the ice rink here. And this is the girls ice skating. The next word is pull. The dogs pull the sled across the snow. Oh, remember the story Balto and the dog sled? This is kind of the same thing. The dogs are pulling the sled. And the last vocabulary word is push. The boy must push the snowblower to make it move. So this actually blows snow out of the way, because if you live somewhere where it snows, the snow keeps piling and piling. And then how are you going to get out of your house? How are you going to drive? How are you going to walk? You have to move the snow. So this actually picks up the snow and blows it out. I've never had to use it before. I don't think you have either. Okay, so those are our vocab words. We're going to start off with the introduction. The introduction introduces or tells you what the story is all about. So it kind of gives you a little sneak peek of the story. And I'm going to let the story read it to you.
Introduction. Introduction.
Let's go, shouts your friend. He's waiting for you to push his sled. If you push the sled, then the sled will move down the hill.
Oh, remember we were talking about that? If you're on the top of a hill and somebody gives you a little push on a sled, you're going to go down because of gravity. So take a look at the illustration. This man is pushing the sled. See, the girls are on the sled, and then he is pushing them down.
This book is about pushes. This book is also about pulls.
It's about pushes and pulls. So what is it? Forces.
A pull is the opposite of a push. All around you, pushes and pulls are at work.
This man is pushing a sled. This woman is pulling a sled.
So the guy is pushing the sled and this woman is pulling the sled. So someone's on here, and do you see the rope connecting it? Good. So the introduction was telling us we're going to be reading about pushes and pulls, which we know are forces. Chapter 1, that tells you that we're starting with one chapter. There's going to be many, and this is the first one. Here's the title, What is a Force? I want you to go ahead and take a look at the illustrations as we read.
Chapter 1. What is a force?
A force is a push or a pull. A force can put objects in motion. Motion is when something is moving.
And we kind of learned about that already. So before we move on, I want you to notice that this word is darker than the other words, and so is this one. That's called bold. Can you say bold? When a word is in bold, that means it's important. They want you to know. They want you to see that that one is important. So this word is force, and they probably put it in bold because they want you to know it's all about forces. You're reading all about forces. And then they also bolded this word that says motion. And that's an important word because that's what we're learning about, right? Forces that push and pull, and motion is movement.
What forces can you see on these pages?
I want you to tell me the forces you see in the illustrations. What pushes and what pulls do you see? Tell me. What are they doing here? Are they pushing or pulling? But it looks like they're pushing the snow, right? And making the snow go bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe they're making a snowman. What do you see on this page? Are they pushing or pulling? I'm sorry, on this illustration. Are they pushing or pulling? They're pulling, right? It looks like they're pulling a rope, kind of like tug of war.
If you push an object, then the object moves away from you. If you pull an object, then the object moves toward you.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Find an object in your classroom that needs a push or a pull to make it move.
Okay, so we're not in the classroom, but I want you to, wherever you're sitting, look around. Is there anything that you can move by pushing or pulling it? I see a lot of things that I can move if I went and pushed it, even if it's heavy. I'm sitting right next to another chair and try to get it. And I can move this chair if I push it. Oops, don't want to push it over. Or I can move it closer if I pull it. What is something at your house that you can push or you can pull to make it move? Awesome. All right, next page. Okay, now we're in chapter 2, which means we're the second chapter.
Chapter 2. How do we use forces?
And that is the title. How do we use forces? Now we're going to read all about how we use forces that push and pull.
Forces allow us to move objects. Machines help us use less force to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
Machines can push or pull objects.
This is also a machine. What kind of machine is this? Some sort of a car or a truck, right? This is actually called a snow plow, and it takes this. This kind of looks like a big mouth. Like if you took a taco shell and you put it down this way, that's how it's shaped. And it just scoops up all the snow to move it out of the road so that other cars could drive. Remember, we were talking about how sometimes snow will pile up and you can't even drive? So this truck has something that scoops the snow, see this in front, scoops the snow off the road so you can move it so that the cars behind can start to drive. I saw a word machines that was in bold, and this is our vocabulary word. It must be pretty important. That's why it's bold.
We use forces in nature too. Moving air or wind is a force.
Do you remember this windmill? We've read about we've read about this before. The windmill.
Wind can push the blades of a windmill and make the blades spin.
So as wind comes, it goes around and around and around. And windmills help you make electricity. Remember we talked about that when we were talking about the past and the present and whether you use technology or electricity. So windmills actually generate electricity by using the wind.
A snowplow pushes snow away. Did you know? People use windmills to make electricity.
Yep. And so this down here that says the snowplow pushes snows away, that's a little caption at the bottom. And then you also have a little box to tell you some more information. Let's look at this one.
A ski lift pulls people up a mountain.
So people are actually sitting. Do you see them? So they sit in these chairs and then it lifts them up into the sky and then it moves them in the sky. So like what they're doing here, it moves them and moves them all the way to a top of a mountain so that they didn't have to walk up the mountain because that would take a long time. So you sit down and it carries you to the top of the mountain and then it drops you off nicely. So it lowers to the ground, it drops you off, and then you can ski or sled or snowboard down the mountain. Chapter 3. So now we're in the third chapter. And the title is here in big blue font.
Chapter 3. How do forces change motion?
So how does a push and a pull change motion? Let me give you an example. Here's a line. It's just sitting still. How can I change the motion? How can I make it move? I can push, right? If I had a string connected, I could pull it, but I don't, so I can't pull. So let's check it out.
Jump in the air.
Jump in the air. Ready, set, go, jump.
Gravity pulls you down to the ground.
Did you start to float or did you come back down to the ground? You came back down, right? Remember what I told you about the lime? If I let it go, it drops because of gravity. If you jump in the air, you drop again, right? You come back down to the ground because of gravity.
Gravity is a force. If
Gravity is a force. What? So that must mean it can push or it can pull. Do you feel gravity, is it pushing you away or do you think it's pulling you to the ground? Think about it. If gravity is in the ground, gravity keeps your feet on the ground. Do you think it's pushing you away? Is it, if this is gravity down here, is it pushing you away or do you think it's pulling you down? Watch. I think it's pulling down.
If Earth did not have gravity, then you would keep moving up and up.
You would float.
Friction is a force too.
Friction. Can you say friction? Friction kind of sounds like fiction, which means fake, but there's an R. Friction. Friction.
Kick a ball across the ground. The ball slows down because it rubs against the ground.
So when you kick a ball, it doesn't keep going forever and ever and ever and ever. It stops, right? You kick it, it goes, and then it stops. It slows down. And that's because of friction. the ball is rubbing against the ground and it starts to slow down. Let me give you an example. I guess the lime really worked out today, huh? Here is the lime. I'm going to pretend it's a ball. Now I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to pretend to be kicking it. Okay? I'm actually going to flick it. Actually, I'll do a little kick. I'll pretend these are my legs. If I kick the lime, I don't want to kick it off the table. It's going to slow down. Ready? Oh, let me do it again because I wanted to get in there. You see how it slowed down? That's because of friction. Let's see it again. Ready? This table slowed it down because of friction.
The rubbing causes friction.
Figure it out. Rough
And now we're down here in this little text box.
surfaces have more friction. Which will come to a stop sooner? A ball moving across an ice rink or a ball pushed with the same force across a carpet? Why?
So that's saying rough surfaces actually make more friction. So I want you to think about an ice rink. An ice rink is nice and smooth. Remember that machine that smooths the ice? So that is really smooth. It's not rough. Rough is kind of, I don't really know how to describe rough. It's not smooth. So smooth is like a lime. A lime is nice and smooth. Rough is like sand. Sand is rough. So carpet is rougher than, or is more rough than an ice rink. So think about carpet. So if I kicked a ball on the carpet, it would actually slow down faster than if I kicked a ball on an ice rink because it's nice and smooth, the ball would go further. But because the carpet is rough, there's more friction. Okay, I want you, now we're going to just go on to here. Look at here.
Gravity pulls the snowboarder to the ground.
So here is the snowboarder. He just took off this ledge. Whoa! Now, where do you think he's going? Where do you think he's going to go? Do you think he's going to stay in the air and float, or do you think he's going to come back down? He's going to come back down. Why? What's that special word that pulls you to the ground? Gravity. Good.
Friction slows the motion of a soccer ball.
So remember, friction is what slows down because it's rubbing together, right? When I was kicking the lime on the table, the lime was rubbing on the table, and that was friction. When they're kicking the soccer ball is rubbing on the ground, and that is friction, so it slows the ball down.
Friction slows the motion of a hockey puck.
And
Chapter 3.
Oops. Whoa. So look over here. This person is playing hockey. And hockey's on an ice rink. You have ice skates on, and you move this little puck with the stick, and you try to get it into a goal. It's really hard, one, to ice skate, but two, to try to move the puck with the stick. So this is what hockey is. And friction slows down the hockey puck. So remember, we talked about the lime moving on the table. The table and the lime are rubbing together, and that's friction. Same thing with the hockey puck. The hockey puck and the ice rink are rubbing together, and that's friction. And the friction slows down the puck. It's not going to go on forever and ever and ever. It's eventually going to stop. All right.
Some forces are big. Some forces are small. If you use a big force, then an object goes faster and farther. A small force only moves the object a little bit.
This is an example of what it's saying. So a big force makes an object go fast and far, and a little force makes an object go slow and not so far. Let me show you with the lime. I'm going to do a little kick, a little force, a little kick, a little push. Did it go very far? No, so that was a little force. I did a little push and it went slow and it stopped, right? It didn't go very far. Now I'm going to do a monster kick. Let's see, ready? A monster push. It went way faster and way farther, and it rolled all the way off my table, right? So when you do a little force, like a baby push, it's not going to go very far. But if you did a monster push, it would go really far and really fast.
An empty sled is easy to move.
Think about it. If you had a sled and you had to move it, it'd be easy to move, right? Let's say Miss Paulino's sitting on the sled and I said, "Okay, come push me." It's going to be heavier, right? Because I'm on it. It's going to be a lot harder to move.
If your friend is riding on the sled, then the sled is heavier. You need a bigger force to move the heavier sled.
Right. So pretend there's an empty sled. It's just an empty sled, and I said, "Can you move it?" You'd say, "Sure," and you'd push it and move it. Then let's pretend Miss Paulino gets on, and I said, "Okay, I need you to move it." Now it's really heavy. Do you have to do a baby push, or do you think you'd have to do a big push if Miss Paulino's on it? Probably a big push, because I'm heavy.
Each dog adds more force. The sled with more dogs moves faster and farther.
So I see 2 dog sleds. I see one up here with the guy and 2 dogs, and then I see this guy here and all these dogs. So which one do you think moves faster? Even though there's more dogs and you think it could be heavier, there's only one person on the sled. There's only one person here and one person here. Think about it. All these dogs are pulling, and in this one, just these 2 are pulling. So which one do you think moves faster in a race? I think this one with all the dogs moves faster because there's more dogs to pull, right? More help. Right here, there's only 2 dogs to pull. They're probably moving a little slow. Let's take a look at this illustration here. I see a dad and a daughter, and they're on a sled here. And then here I see a boy pulling his sled.
Which sled needs a bigger force to make it move?
So, which one do you think is harder to move, the empty sled or the sled with 2 people on it? I think the sled with 2 people is probably heavier, so they need a big push. This one here, it doesn't even need a push because no one's on it.
Look at text structure. Cause and effect. Look for the word if. This word helps us understand a cause. What is the cause of the sled being heavier? Which word helps us understand the effect?
Okay, so we're going to look at this word up here, if. If your friend is riding on the sled, so if Miss Paulino's on the sled, that's the cause. Miss Paulino is on the sled. I am the reason why I'm on the sled. Then the sled is heavier. The effect, so the cause is what happened. The effect is what happened after. The cause is Miss Paulino gets on the sled. What happened after is now it's heavier. And we use the word then, the sled is heavier, which helps us. But don't worry about that. Okay, here we go. We're moving on. Long story. We're at the very end. Conclusion. That means we're going to conclude everything we learned, and we're going to put it all on one page just to kind of wrap up what we learned.
Conclusion.
A force is a push or a pull. A force can make an object move. A force can also slow or stop an object's motion.
Friction.
We use forces every day. Forces can be big or small.
Pushes. Pulls.
Let's look at these 2 illustrations. I see all these different types of pushes. I see the dad pushing his son on the sled. I see the snowplow pushing the snow off the street. And I see the boys playing hockey pushing the puck across the ice rink. Oh, look, this boy's pushing the whole box. That's funny. On this side, I see pulls. I see the mom pulling her son on the sled. I see the ski lift, which is pulling the people up the mountain. And I also see gravity pulling the skier down the hill. And this girl's actually pulling this box. Do you see the rope? That is funny. Okay, the very last page is the glossary, which tells you the vocabulary words. and where to find them, but we already found them because we said they were bold. And you know what? We are actually not going to do our circle map today. We're going to do it tomorrow. So save it. We will still use it, but I don't want to make the video too long. Okay, that's it for our reading lesson today. I have another long vowel for you. We're learning a new one. And then I have a math lesson. So stay tuned. Okay, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Keep the circle map for tomorrow. Bye-bye.